In the last video, we completed render location, and this was our test to print it. I've combined it kind of all my testing so that I can see it in the comments. This way, as I do each function, I'll just copy my testing as I go. We are now going to do render player. When we look at the tutorial, although it said there was a render player, there is nothing about rendering the player. So then I'm going to go back over to the code to see what would I do with render player. What is unique to the player? What have I not told you? So I've told you where the player is, but what I haven't told you is what the player has in their inventory. So this seems to be what we should print in create player. Tell about the inventory. Now render player will return a string, just like render location returned a string. First, I need to get to the inventory. We got to the location by looking at the world, the player, the location. I might call it my bag as the world at the player and not at the location, but their inventory. So what is this? What type is this? So when we go look at the player inventory, the type that it is a list. So how do we print out the items in a list? Because that's going to be what we want to do for render player. So we could set up S to be a string, and then it could print out like inventory, \n again puts that return in. We could do for each item in the bag and add that to our string with the return. I can print an end of inventory. So to test this, I would put render player. I'm going to render my player before the location. So when I run it, I can see, well, there's nothing in the inventory, right? It's empty. You are in the velvet room. You are in a very soft room, all lines covered in soft velvet. Now, other suggestions that you could add. This seems like a lot to print if they have nothing. So maybe you want to ask if your bag is empty. And if it's empty, just return no items, or don't print the inventory. So you can create this in whatever way makes sense to you. So that would complete this. So let's test render the world. I moved all my tests to below the render the world, and I'm now going to call render world. Well, sorry, it's render world is what we send to it, and then test it out. And render world, ooh, printed my inventory right after the soft blue velvet. So that's probably not an ideal thing to do. So maybe before I print, I want to print my player before I print my location. At least to me, that might make sense. And there's my inventory, and you're in a velvet room. So personally, I would ask if it's an empty list and then not print everything. Technically, it's printing everything we want. So that is the end of rendering the world.